Welcome to Talks at Google. I'm Shane Peltzman, and today we welcome the cast of Bohemian Rhapsody, Gwilym Lee, Rami Malek, and Joseph Mazzello.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome, guys.
How's it going? Yeah?
Cool. So, congratulations, guys, on an awesome film. I saw the film yesterday and loved it. A lot of the people here, I think, were able to see it last night at the screening.
Did you really?
Yep.
Oh. Yeah, that's... I am mic'd. We haven't screened it many times, so this is one of the first audiences in America, and for that matter, the world, to see this, which is really cool. Thank you guys for watching.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And what I actually just heard was that, and tell me if I'm wrong, but day one of shooting, you guys were thrown into Wembley and shooting the Live Aid concert. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, not Wembley specifically. It doesn't actually exist in its old shape anymore. So it was actually a replica, full-size replica in an airfield in the north of London. Not particularly glamorous. But it was a pretty full-on way to start a film.
Near Luton.
Near Luton,
the Metropolis.
It's a really,
raging
it's
metropolis.
a lovely spot actually. Well worth a trip if ever you're back in the UK. But yeah, it was a pretty full-on way to start. Pretty terrifying, but it was great because you sink or swim in that situation, right? You've got to go for it. You
Yeah.
can't take your time and be cautious about it. You just jump on in and hope for the best.
Really, the first 7 weeks were dedicated to Live Aid because we were brought in 6 weeks early to do band rehearsals and to learn this 20-minute set that we had to get down in its entirety. And it was very precise. It was actually for this one concert, because the actual footage is so famous and everyone can see it, we wanted to make sure that we were exact. So if like John's head turned to the left at an exact moment, I had to do it at that moment. And especially for Rami, he had to, Freddie is just going nuts in that concert. He had to have all of that down, and so that's why we, but it was great. It was a great way to bond. It was a great way to come together as a band. Polly Bennett, our movement coach, she was instrumental in our morale and our coming together and our movements, so it was really amazing.
There's is Hammer to Fall where Freddie's really feeling himself. He's doing some things with his body that you could never replicate. And when we shot that on the third day, we would go song by song. Monday we did Bohemian Rhapsody, Tuesday Radio Gaga, Wednesday we did Hammer to Fall, so on and so forth. And so we would jump into the middle of a song, and I'd been rehearsing this over and over, and there were twists and things I knew I could do, but I wasn't able to do them on Wednesday. On Friday I could do them, because that's when we ran the entire concert together, and you realize, oh shit, he's riding off of pure adrenaline. And once that adrenaline kicks in, you're Superman. and damn does that feel good, because acting's a pretty great high in and of itself. Being out there and having the hype of that rock star moment, it's on another level. The adrenaline coursing through your body, it's like a drug. You realize why they all want to go out afterwards and not let the night ever end.
It was sort of funny too, because when we were doing these band rehearsals, Polly would have us do all these sort of theater-y exercises that maybe felt a little silly or a little foolish, like we had to touch in before we would start stuff or whatever. But then when we got to that moment where it was literally the first shot is us coming out onto that stage, we were all obsessively being like, no, touch in, we got to do all the things. I'm sorry. So it was funny how it translated, and suddenly we needed that feeling of the energy coming together before going out on that stage and feeling like we can live up to what we were rehearsing.
Freddie had some outrageous moves as well in that concert. That Hammer to Fall bit. It's a PG-13, so we couldn't actually include this move in the film. But there's a bit where in front of 70,000 people, he takes his microphone stand and essentially just jerks off in front of 70,000 people. And it's like the brazen confidence of the man to do that in that moment is just sums him up beautifully. And then immediately afterwards, he just turns around and shows his ass to the entire crowd. Only Freddie can get away with that. It's awesome.
That would be the.
And you just now.
And me just now.
Really, movement coach Paulie should be like, all right, 5, 6, 7, 8. You have to twist, do-si-do, wank, wank, wank. Give me the box. I said, excuse me? She's like, look at him. He's performing a sexual act. He's done. He just gave you his thing, and now he turns around and says, my turn.
That's amazing. Yeah, I wanted to ask about.
I know. It's crazy to say this, but only Freddie could get away with that.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, you guys didn't have the benefit of having Freddie around to use as a source for information and material. I know Brian May was a producer on the film, Roger Taylor and Jim Beach. How involved were they in terms of the film's creation, but also working with you guys directly? And how much were you able to take from them and their experiences?
They were amazing, so generous with their time. They shared stories with us and memories and things. But equally, they were quite adamant that we should tell the story, warts and all. And so they often came on set during the live performance sequences, because I think they were music producers on the film, so that's where they felt their expertise was most useful. But when it came to doing the more intimate acted scenes, I suppose, the dramatic scenes, they left us to our own devices to give us space to explore that properly. But yeah, I mean, from my point of view, being able to meet the man that I'm playing, to be able to spend time with him intimately, to get to know him, is just the best. I mean, it sounds crass to call it research, but to spend time with someone as a human being, as an equal, you really absorb something of their soul, I think. So that was the greatest opportunity of all, I think, for me.
What was one of the notes that Brian May gave you on at Live Aid?
Yeah. So Live Aid, like we say, it was the one moment being such an iconic gig. It was the one part of the film that we really wanted to capture in absolute detail. So we rehearsed for ages to get this right. And Brian was on set when we did the first rehearsal on set and saw us do a run through. And he came up to me afterwards and he was like, "Yeah, it's very good, very good. Very accurate. You've got that down. But just don't forget I'm a rock star." And with that comes a certain amount of ego. And it's like, oh, okay. And it was a really good note, because what I understood that to mean, it's like, we can mimic things in absolute detail as much as we want, vocally, physically, and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, we've got to fill that with our own sense of adrenaline and our own sense of kind of energy and joy and all that kind of thing. So it was a really useful thing to hear early on and to take with us throughout the film.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask, not only obviously the members of Queen and the manager, but Mike Myers has a very unique role in Queen's history, especially with generations that came up, after Freddie's death. And Mike Myers was a cameo in the film. I wondered what it was like to meet Mike Myers in that context and talk to him about his role in Queen's kind of rock history.
Did you guys know it was Mike Myers in the film? Ray Foster, the record executive, that's Mike Myers. So when he's talking about no one ever banging their heads to Bohemian Rhapsody, it's never gonna work. No one will ever bang their heads to that song.
It's not that song. Yeah.
He showed up like that too. He showed up
in character,
fully in character, and
the beard,
the beard, the wig, the whole thing. And so we also had that same double take. We're like, yep, there he is. And it was just, man, working with Mike, that was awesome, because there's like a line in the script, it's not in the movie, but where he just literally says, "How was Japan?" Right? That's not funny. Just how was Japan? And when he delivered it, we were all like crying laughing. And for the next like 5 months, we were all going to each other, "So, how was Japan?" like, we just figured it out. And it's just like, so it was the mix of like this, like, I don't know, this innate sense of comedy, but at the same time, he cared so, like, you can come on and do like a little cameo in something and be like, okay, whatever, paycheck, get me out of here. He cared so deeply about getting it perfect. he was such a pro. Every word that he said, he wanted it to be right, and just to see that level of professionalism and care that he took with it. It was one of the first things we shot. It made us kind of go, well, we definitely have to at least match that, you know. And so it was awesome to work with him.
It was one of the most enjoyable few days at work. There's a bit at the end of one of his scenes where Freddie throws a rock through the window, and then he goes to see who's thrown this rock and sees us kind of giving him the finger from down below. And we were filming this in a quite well-heeled part of North London, not too far from where I live. Like, I've got a lot of friends in the area. And it turned into just this, like, hurling abuse at each other. And the cameras just kept rolling. There was nothing scripted, so it's just Mike Myers leaning out of a window, just being so abusive, so horrible, just like, yeah, wanker, all this kind of stuff. To the point where, like, there are some people in the street, there was a mother and her child just, like, shepherding her child away, going, no, don't listen to this horrible man. But honestly, like, you know, sat behind the camera for an eyeline for Mike Myers, just, like, giggling, like, giddy with excitement that we're in this moment with this. He's a legend in my eyes. I've always loved him. So yeah, the opportunity to be working with him was awesome.
Yeah.
That was the surreal moment. We were calling each other twat and wanker, and you know, at one point I go, you know, to shove this up your ass, and he goes, I want a meal, not a snack. And it's like, you know on SNL when you watch everybody break and you think, is that real? Is it game? With him, we're breaking the whole time. It's like, sorry.
Yeah, it was interesting. Bohemian Rhapsody actually went back to #2 on the charts after Wayne's World. And I wouldn't be surprised if a similar thing happens after this film's released.
That'd be cool.
Because working with I just wanted to hear more about, I guess, your guys' experience, how you came to Queen and what it was like coming into this film of honoring these rock stars. Because I think some biopics can make it kind of cheesy, the history, and kind of superfluous. And I think this film did a really good job of honoring the music in a really beautiful way.
What was for our first experience with Queen, like way back
yeah.
for that? Yeah, it's sort of, you know, I mean, like, sort of growing up in the 90s was like, you know, listening to a lot of like Nirvana and like Pearl Jam and like, you know, music's serious. And Queen is like so much fun and so boisterous and like sort of crazy. Like, as a youth, I felt like, oh, it's just like a gimmick or something, or like, you know, whatever, that's not my kind of music. Mine's real. They don't understand the struggle. And then sort of like, as I got older, like into college, I think, is when I really like started listening to what they were really doing and started seeing their genius and started seeing how they cross all these genres, and their music's timeless and it just spans decades for a reason, and it's just so intricate and I think that sort of my love of Queen has just gone like this throughout my life, to the point where now, like, it's off the charts, because like learning how to play the songs, you get a deeper appreciation for it, learning why they were written, learning how they collaborated. It's so insane. But like, once we were done shooting, like, I went on a road trip and all I listened to was Queen. Like, I was like, what songs didn't we cover? I want to know those now too. And it's sort of wild how like we didn't get sick of it and we just loved it even more.
The risk is because the music's so universal, you hear it everywhere on the radio, TV, sports stadiums, every time you go and see a game. You kind of, there's a risk of taking it all for granted, and you just go, oh yeah, there's Queen, okay, cool. But actually, to really sit down and consider what it must have been like to write a song like Bohemian Rhapsody, which is like, you know, was so unique, so revolutionary at the time, to think what imagination it took to come up with a song like that is quite something. And you see that with all of the songs in the film, because it's an origins film in that sense. You see the origins and making of all these songs, which we do take for granted. So.
Yeah.
Bohemian Rhapsody, when you look at the tape that they recorded it on, it's clear. That's how many overdubs they put on it. You know, and at the risk of losing the entire song, they kept going and kept going. And if you go too far, the whole thing will be erased. But they just kept pushing the limits. And in this movie, the coolest thing is, you know, we have archival, you know, obviously footage, but the art department can show you stuff that, you know, that has, you know, the original lyrics on it, and it just says Freddie's thing. And the band members just kept going, all right, we're back to Freddie's thing today. We're going to do the Galileos again and whatnot. What are we going to call it? Who knows? It's Freddie's thing right now. And it's insights to that, the making of all these songs that's fascinating. And this is one band where all 4 members write songs. It's rare when that happens, the level of collaboration that existed. And some of the songs, it's like you said, they're iconic and they feel poppy at times, very universal, but some of the messages in these songs, I mean, you can even look at the 3 stages of Man in We Will Rock You. And, Brian May walked us through how his writing process on that at Abbey Road Studios before we shot, kind of mind-blowing moment for us. But the guy is such a deep thinker. He's Dr. Brian May, an astrophysicist. And, he has a song called 39 that if you listen, you'd think it was a folk song, but if you dig deep into it, it's about time travel. And it's a very, very complex thing. I had to listen to it about 5 times before I was like, oh, no way. And all of the songs do that. I mean, Radio Gaga, I sit alone and watch how do the lyrics go? I guess they're too complex for me to remember. We'll get to that later.
Sweet friend,
Yes.
teenage nights.
Yes.
But
All right.
Well, actually, I'm going to ask
John
one
Deacon
more.
never sing. That's such a shame. Voice of an angel.
I'm just going to ask one more question, but if we're going to take audience questions as well, so if everyone wants to line up, Kevin over here has a mic, and you guys can get going right over here. So don't be bashful, get in line. I also wanted to ask, you kind of mentioned like you had this fear, like maybe I'll get sick of Queen songs, and of course, like the opposite effect happened. You guys were in such tight quarters, filming all these scenes together, so many locations. You guys essentially became a band, and now, not only during the process of filming the movie, but now you're on a press junket. You guys are literally touring together. So I wanted to ask you what that experience has been like.
I honestly can't stand the sight of these guys. I'm so sick of it. No. We became like a family. We really did. Like, it was such an important part of the story that we wanted to capture, as like that rapport that they had. That Queen referred to themselves as a family, as the mothership. And so it was really important for us to capture that. And we just, part of that was 6 weeks of rehearsals before we started filming, doing this Live Aid sequence, and just spending every hour of every day with each other. And where possible, while we were playing to backing tracks on set when it came to the filming, we'd try and plug in when we could and like play together as a band to have, to know what it's like to have to listen to each other, to have to keep time and all that kind of thing. And we went out quite a lot and hung out purely as a matter of research and development.
Yeah, sure.
And
We went on vacation together when we were done filming.
yeah,
Really?
That's what happened. Like, we went to Scotland and then to Paris. Like, it was just like, we didn't want it to end. And that's, I think, kind of, I've never done that before.
Yeah. Have
we
you
all-
jammed together since?
we
Not
had a little
since.
play the other day, actually.
Oh, we did
had a
actually,
little play.
2 days ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where was it? In Miami.
Yeah.
This is the craziest thing. I don't think have you done a press tour like this before?
Yeah, sort of, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So.
Yeah, but this is the best one ever.
But you're in a city, a different city every day, sometimes 2 cities in a day, and you realize when a rock star comes out in a city like this and says, thank you, Cleveland, you get why they may have misspoke, because you lose all sense of
San Francisco.
Yeah, I'm in San Francisco. But yeah, it's the thing with us. I'm all over the place here, but the thing with, as usual, the thing with us is we had this deep and meaningful goodbye at the end, and it was pretty heart-wrenching and emotional, and then we realized how ludicrous it was because we spend so much time together. This movie was, one of the greatest joys of my life, and I think collectively ours, to get to portray this band, and for me, this man who is everything to me now. But the relationship that we got out of it is just as special to me.
That's awesome. All right, cool. We're going to take some audience questions.
First of all, these must be really long days for you as you're promoting the movie, so thank you for coming in.
Oh, thank you.
I'm imagining the audition process must have been kind of weird or different because it's so physical and there's the musical element to it. Was it just a normal audition where you just I'm kind of curious what the process was like given all the things that they would require of you for making this movie?
It was slightly different for all of us, actually. I mean, I had a different way into it, but I was expecting to have like a guitar test. I thought that's the least, right? That's the least I should expect. So, like you, for weeks leading up to while all this was like in the balance, I was just madly practicing guitar, and I paid for some lessons just on my own with a teacher and prepared myself for a test that never came. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in a rehearsal room going, okay, right, just get to work. So it was, I think maybe, I don't know why they didn't do that, but maybe because we had hand doubles on set every day, so I think maybe they thought, well, if you can play it, great. If you can't, we'll find a way around that. I think they wanted to get the right actors for the part before anything. But thankfully, you got to the end of the shoot and never used those hand doubles. So it became a point of pride for all of us, and we felt a sense of achievement at the end of it when these poor guys who'd been on set every day,
Easiest job in the
full
entire
costume
world.
and makeup, didn't have to do anything.
Brian Mays hanging out. Yeah, for me, I met the producers at one point and they asked me if I could play guitar. And I was just like, not as good as Queen. And they were like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, well, that's not happening. I sort of moved on with my life. But then like a month later, I got a call saying that Joe, they say that you really look like John Deacon, the bassist. So I Googled him and I was like, oh, no. I have to ask my mom some serious questions. Were you in England in 1983? No. Yeah, he just looks so much like me. And so same thing. I immediately went to one of my best friends, was like, give me your bass guitar. And I tried to learn how to play a couple of the songs. But then all they wanted me to do, they just showed me this interview with John Deacon. They said, hey, can you just show us your accent, English accent? And it was this little interview he did where he's riding around in a bus. So I just looked at it on my phone, and that day I just went out and drove around a parking lot and kind of matched the light of it, and just while I was driving, I just took a selfie video of me doing the interview into the phone, and I just watched it and I was like, actually that was pretty good, I'm gonna send that. And I just sent it off to them, and then before I knew it they were like, we don't need anything else. And it still took I feel 2 months before I found out I got the job. Queen was actually playing in Brooklyn, where I was living, and I was like, should I go to the concert and hold up a sign that says, put me in your movie? And then the next day I found out I got the job. So that was sort of fun way in.
It's bonkers how much you look like in there. One of the first times we all were in costume and makeup was to do a photo shoot the props needed to make up a version of the greatest hits with our faces on it. And so we all turned up, me with a wig, you with the moustache and a wig, Ben with a wig. Joe just turned up. Like this, pretty much. Maybe had a shave.
Well, yeah,
and it was oh, it's John Deacon. Yeah, in our midst.
They did give me a perm. That was fun.
Oh yeah.
I'm glad they did that for me. Really helped me get into character. I still had to wear 6 wigs.
He didn't realize that perm was abbreviation for permanent.
I did not, because I am an idiot.
Very, very.
I was so 7 to 10 days, this just kind of washes out. They're like, oh no. 6 months later, I had this clown hair. It was crystal clown.
I loved it. Whenever we went out,
slick it back.
Whenever we went out, Joe would always have his Yankees hat, his New York Yankees hat, and then he'd be chatting to a girl or something at a bar, and then I'd just take off the hat and go.
That's a true story. So now you know his character.
I'm a good friend. Bad wingman, but good friend.
Sorry, we have time for one more question.
Oh,
sorry,
that's
guys.
All right, so
That's so sad.
obviously the relationship between the members of the band was very core to their creative process. How did you develop and convey that relationship between your characters on screen?
We were lucky that we got to ad-lib so much. That was definitely one of the things. Basically, every time we showed up on set, we were just making up half the lines. I mean, I think the majority of my lines in the movie are things that I just said on the day. And so that is kind of a thing where you start riffing off of each other, and you know your character so well, you know how they'll react to each other. I think that was part of it.
And the editor did a really good job of just picking candid moments in this where you're, oh, didn't even realize I was on camera there. Or us laughing. I mean, when you see people, laughter in a movie, it sometimes feels forced. You can never predict chemistry in a film. I mean, two people can get along so well in life, and you don't know how it's going to play in front of a camera. What evolved between us was just so purely genuine that if you wanted to laugh, you could really, really sustain it and enjoy it because it was so real that you never felt, oh, this is too much. This feels canned. Everything was just so natural with us, and it's such a rare thing to have. And we had the freedom of, because we got to know each other and trusted each other so much, we could ad-lib with one another, and we knew where to pick up and start so many. There is not one scene in this movie that probably doesn't have at least something that was thrown in on the day from one of us.
It was great having Mike Myers. All of his scenes were like quite close to the beginning of our shoot, and so having a master like that set the precedent. We're like, throughout the shoot, we'd be like, what would Mike do? You know? And he would just try and emulate his kind of naughtiness and his cheekiness. And a lot of the things that he used to say to himself on set became catchphrases to us. Like before a scene, he'd go, just for shizzies and gizzies. And that would be his way. Like, and just that playfulness was like, okay, that's good. That's what we need to do.
That's incredible. All right, cool. Well, we have to wrap up, but I would be remiss to leave this question out if we could just go down the row and your favorite Queen song. I'll start. I Want to Break Free.
Really?
Really.
Why do you like that one so much?
It's got such a cool rhythm. The bass line is so fun. The percussion is just like, it's kind of got this boppiness to it. It's fun. I don't know.
Cool, we're out of time. Thanks.
Score one for John
Just want to turn
Deacon.
your chairs this way. But please.
I love Under Pressure. I'm a massive Bowie fan as well. You know, they happen. I think what worked so well with Queen, and especially Freddie, just loved when things weren't planned. And they ran into Bowie one day in the same city, in the same recording studio, and they said, "Hey, why don't we do something today?" And they began putting something together. And what did John do? He came up with some.
He came up,
kind of,
boom, 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 boom.
Oh, that, yeah. Right?
And then he forgot it at
And
lunch.
then he forgot it. They went and had a slice of pizza and came back, and he couldn't remember the bass line anymore. And then Roger goes, no, it went something like this on the drums. And that was the evolution of that. And then Bowie started writing something down, went in to record it, and Freddie went to listen because he was so competitive. He's like, whatever he's doing, I'm gonna do something better. And he just went, and you hear him hitting some of the highest notes he's probably ever hit in that. And then you get to hear his operatic warm-up, you know, the dee-da-da-da. All of that is in there. That's just special. All the stories you get, you know, the making of these songs and doing the research and in the film is what I find the most special about their music. What do you got?
Somebody to Love is my all-time favorite. I feel like, you know, Bohemian Rhapsody is obviously their masterpiece, you know, but I feel like Somebody to Love is equally so, and it's a little more accessible, and it just like the lyrics kind of speak to you, you know, a little bit more. So that one's always been my all-time favorite. Then like some deep tracks I like Father to Son and Action This Day. I've been singing all day today.
I always loved exactly the same songs as Joe. Somebody to Love and Bohemian Rhapsody. But this film now has given me like an emotional connection to every song that we played.
Yeah.
And like songs that, so Radio Gaga, when I have heard a recording of that, I'm like, yeah, it's a good song. It's a good song. When I hear it at Live Aid, I'm like, oh my God, it's incredible, because that was the moment when you just go, Freddie's onto something here. Like this is a special moment, because it's when he really captures the crowd, and you just see that engagement with 70,000 people. And you kind of like, I mean, what's great with this film, we saw it in a screen yesterday, a huge screen in Dallas with an amazing sound system. And you have like the vibration of the music going through your chest, like you're at a concert. And it's that kind of like epic feel that I love about that song performed on that day in July 1985.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, thank you guys so much. The film's incredible. You guys nailed it. And I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you guys so much. The film comes out November 2nd, so if you didn't get to see it last night, even if you did, go back and see it again.
Yeah, why
And,
not go back and see it again?
Thank you so much.
A few times.
Thank you very much.